Coming tonight. My name is Jason Deisman. I'm with the City of Toronto Public Consultation Unit, and my job here tonight is to help you hear from the city and to help the city hear from you. There are some seats at the front here. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'm not sure if anyone's holding those. 6, 7, 8. So if you're looking for a seat, we'll be glad to have you here comfortably near the front. And all the materials that we're presenting tonight are already online. They're also the same as what you see in the back of the room. The presentation tonight's going to be pretty quick. It's a high-level synopsis of the same information that is on the website, that is around the room. And we're also then going to invite some Q&A. But first, let me do our land acknowledgement. I acknowledge the land I'm on today is the traditional territory of many nations, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat peoples, and is now home to many diverse First Nations, Inuit, and Métis people. I also acknowledge that Toronto is covered by Treaty 13, signed with the Mississaugas of the Credit, and the Williams Treaty, signed with multiple Mississaugas and Chippewa bands. Toronto is built on sacred land that is part of an agreement between Indigenous peoples and then extended to allied nations to peacefully and respectfully care for it. Though I am not a person of African descent, I am committed to continually acting in support of and in solidarity with Black communities seeking freedom and reparative justice in light of the history and ongoing legacy of slavery that continues to impact Black communities in Canada. As part of this commitment, I would also like to acknowledge that not all people came to these lands as migrants and settlers. Specifically, I wish to acknowledge those of us who came here involuntarily, particularly those brought to these lands as a result of the transatlantic slave trade and slavery. In support of the City of Toronto's ongoing efforts to confront anti-Black racism, I pay tribute to those ancestors of African origin and descent. Just a quick reminder that we want this meeting to be safe and respectful. I'm not too worried about it because you're all wonderful people, but I will say this. The City of Toronto is committed to conducting events and meetings in a safe and respectful environment for all participants and staff. As a participant, you agree to abide by the City of Toronto's human rights and anti-harassment discrimination policy and hate activity policy. The following will not be tolerated and may result in being expelled: coarse language, aggressive, threatening, or intimidating behavior, any harassment, discrimination, or hate activity. But I'm not worried about that because you're all wonderful people and we were talking already at the back, and we're going to continue talking tonight, so I'm really looking forward to hearing you, some at the microphone and a lot of you one-on-one. So who we have in the room tonight, we've got a whole bunch of transportation services staff and some public consultation unit. Specifically, who's going to be at the microphone tonight from Transportation Services is Becky Katz. She's the Manager of Cycling and Pedestrian Projects, and Kyle Gachalian, Senior Project Manager, Cycling and Pedestrian Projects, who has been stick handling this project as a project manager. And myself, I'm Jason Deisman, a Senior Coordinator doing public consultation. I do events like this. So that's the overall, the welcome and the overview. We're going to be inviting any opening remarks from representatives of the councillor's offices. I don't think they might be running a bit late. So, we'll then have a presentation. Like I said, it's going to be a short synopsis of the project, just to kind of give an introduction and inviting then some questions and comments from the audience. So once we have completed the presentation, Mike is going to set up a mic. And we'll be inviting to ask some questions of clarification. And at that point, it's more of the high-level questions. And I understand you could also make some comments, but we do want to keep it brief. There's so many people here tonight. There's at least about 60 people that have joined us, and we're so glad to have you. But when we do the microphone, we only hear from one person at a time. And so what we want to do is have that opportunity, but then we would like to continue to return to that drop-in format where we can have one-on-one conversations at the maps and at the boards, be able to have clipboards, and make sure everyone gets a chance to be heard by city staff, to get their detailed questions answered, to write things down, to point to those spots in the maps and talk about the things that you like and things that you're concerned about with this project, and about the approach, and get your questions answered. So that'll be a great opportunity. We do want to move to following the questions and answers. And we will end promptly at 8 p.m. I promised the caretaker that we would be out of here by 8:30, and we've got a lot to pack up. So I'm looking forward to having a wonderful meeting with you. And then at 8 o'clock, we will be asking everyone to continue on with your evening somewhere else. So, don't have a counselor's office at the moment. He might show up later, or other representatives. With that, I invite Kyle Kachalian from Transportation Services to make a brief presentation.
Good evening, everyone. As Jason mentioned, my name is Kyle Kachalian. I am a Senior Project Manager with the City's Cycling and Pedestrian Projects Unit. Thank you all for coming out this evening. The purpose of today's meeting is to hear community input. So, as Jason said, hear what you might like or what you might dislike about Danforth, Kingston, and Birchmount. Can you hear me? Okay. It's also an opportunity to introduce the Complete Street project as a whole. So we've prepared a few slides here that I think will help facilitate this conversation. As Jason mentioned, everything that I'm showing on screen is essentially just a duplicate of some of the boards that we have out here tonight. So if I'm going through anything and you see something that you want more time with or that requires additional information, just know that this is a small fragment of the information that we have on display tonight. I'm here to answer any questions. Becky is also here. We have a lot of great City of Toronto staff to answer questions and hear your concerns and comments. So I quickly want to start with a brief history of the work that's already been done on Danforth. So in 2020, City Council directed Transportation Services, which is us, to do the Complete Street work as part of the Destination Danforth project. This was originally posed as a pilot, but in the following year, Council actually approved that as a permanent installation. They also, at the same time, directed Transportation Services to continue the Complete Street work eastward to Victoria Park. Also in that same year, Council authorized a cycling network implementation plan, which includes the Danforth Kingston Complete Street project, which we're all here to talk about tonight. I will mention that our project corridor is a critical part of Toronto's cycling network. It has been flagged as a major citywide cycling route for people riding on bikes traveling east-west through our city. Our Complete Street project is really aimed at making the street safer and more attractive to people who are riding bikes, pedestrians, and motorists. At a very high level, the three changes that we are considering are lane reconfigurations, new cycle tracks, and safety improvements. I want to state that the design proposal that we have for you tonight is just meant to sort of facilitate conversation and hear everyone's feedback. It's definitely not a final design proposal. It's certainly not meant for implementation. We are just really interested in getting feedback at this stage. So here are our scope limits. They include Danforth from Victoria Park to the Danforth-Kingston merge. They include Kingston from the merge to Scarborough Golf Club Road, and a small portion of Birchmount south of Danforth to the existing waterfront trail. There is a portion of Kingston that is flagged for road resurfacing. So what that means is the existing condition of the road is in such a state that it requires the surface to be removed and repaved. And that is between St. Clair Avenue and Markham Road. The majority of our project is intended to be implemented without major road work. So what that means is the changes that we are proposing are intended to be delivered with flexible materials. These are things like bollards or pavement markings or signage. These are typically things that can be attached to existing surfaces with ease. There is a portion of our project, as I mentioned, that is being resurfaced, and this is an opportunity to explore options for more significant change, so changes to hardscape. Here we can sort of piggyback off of the road resurfacing improvements to propose things like changes to sidewalks, to things like transit platforms or curb alignments. This is something that we in Transportation Services are really excited about, given that road resurfacing typically only happens once every 25 years. This is really an interesting opportunity to implement real safety measures and also future-proof the road for what might be coming in the corridor. In some of the panels that you'll see around the room, you'll see a few panels dedicated to existing conditions. We underwent an existing conditions analysis and saw 3 overarching themes. These themes are safety, transit and mobility, and curb lane utilization. For safety, some of the findings that we found, collisions are occurring at a higher frequency in this corridor when compared to other places in the city. We also found that speeding is also occurring in this corridor. So there are panels that speak specifically to those that you can look at. There are also panels about transit and mobility specifically. We looked at existing ridership of the TTC. We found that demand for TTC service is high. We found that ridership is specifically very high on Kingston between Midland and Eglinton, and this is largely due to the adjacency to Borden Station. And lastly, for curb lane utilization, most of that analysis is done in analyzing the existing available on-street parking on all 3 streets. We found that there is quite a bit of parking available, but not a lot of it is being used. This is something that's important for the design team to understand as we consider what that might be able to be repurposed for, given what we know about the demand for transit and the need for safer roads. I just have a quick slide here about our complete street approach to design. So the complete street guidelines that have been developed by the City of Toronto are really a document that sees streets as places for people, specifically pedestrians. They also see streets as important assets to support local businesses, not only as just transportation corridors for motor vehicles. This is a framework that we have adopted because we find it is very useful in addressing those specific concerns that we have for Danforth Kingston, specifically safety, transit and mobility, and space utilization. I have a quick slide here about our approach to traffic analysis. So we do have a traffic model that has been informed by existing condition data. This is a model that we are using to better understand impacts to traffic as a result of some of the changes that we are considering as part of this project. Once we gather everyone's feedback as part of this phase of consultation, we will be able to complete another traffic model that represents the future condition. And during our second phase of consultation, we'll be able to share the results of that study, at which point we will again invite feedback and we can sort of make changes to design to address both the results of that study and any concerns that might come out of that second round of consultation. For the purposes of tonight's meeting, we have divvied up the road into several segments. They are ordered from west to east, so starting with Danforth and then moving into Kingston. Around the room, you will see that these segments match up with streetscape sections, cross sections. There's one cross section that explains the existing condition and then one cross section that explains the proposed condition. I will also note that for Kingston, there are 2 design options for your consideration. And my last slide here is just about project timeline. So when we started this project in 2023, we began some early engagement. That included meeting with some community interest groups like the DIA. We also conducted a business delivery and loading survey to better understand some of the demands for loading in the corridor. We entered a phase of technical design, which allowed us to explore feasible design options, which we are now sharing with you tonight. And this event is part of our phase 1 of public consultation. We had a virtual event last night, and we will have one more event next week where we, again, are interested in getting your feedback before entering a phase of detailed design, where we will incorporate that feedback into recommended design and a potential phasing implementation plan, which will be presented as part of our phase 2 consultation expected to happen in fall of 2024. So thank you so much for your patience. I know that was quite a bit. I'm now going to hand it off to Jason again, who will chair the Q&A section.
Well, thank you very much, Kyle. And Mike, you can start to set up the microphone and just keep it off when you're setting it up. So that was a short synopsis. A lot of work's been going on behind the scenes, and a lot of work still needs to be done. And so we're going to be inviting you to ask some questions about where we're at right now, which is this phase one, where we've got these high-level concepts, we've got an understanding of the existing conditions, and we are inviting public input and feedback to help us inform our next phase that would be giving much more detailed designs. And when we do invite questions, we'll be inviting you one at a time at the microphone. Do ask you to be brief. Please limit yourself to one question or comment at a time. Instead of showing up with like 2, 3, or 4 questions, there's a lot of other folks that also have questions, and we want to give people, everyone, an opportunity. And also remember, if you've got detailed questions, the best place to do that is one-on-one at the tables and at the boards. We've got a lot of staff in the room. Staff, could you put up your hands? We've got almost 15 staff here. Transportation Services and Public Consultation Unit to answer questions and to take your comments. And so we do want to get back to that one-on-one at the tables soon. But we first are going to be inviting questions now. You can see already the code of conduct asking everyone to be respectful and brief, and I'm sure you will be. So I can invite you now to make your way to the microphone. If you are unable to stand at the microphone, please let Mike know. Just get his attention. You can wave to him, and we'll get a microphone to you. But otherwise, it would make it much easier for all of us to have an efficient process of one at a time at the microphone. I invite you to introduce yourself, but you don't have to. And then we'll have staff respond as best we can. Go ahead, sir.
Hi, thanks so much for coming. I'm Misha Perizak from Scarborough Junction community, Birch Mountain, St. Clair area. So my question and comment is about bike lanes and the way they're currently being set up on city streets. So overview right now in our ward, it's really hard to get, especially the last 6 months, to get west to east or east to west from East York to Scarborough Southwest and the other way. Partly that's construction, partly that's bike lanes on Danforth, and partly construction on Gerrard and other streets. Bottom line is, when you reduce car traffic to one lane, it becomes really problematic and causes a lot of congestion and delay. So that's kind of the thrust of where I'm coming from. And whether you guys would consider other options like parallel streets, bike lanes on parallel streets just off. I know that's been discussed before, has its other problems. The Danforth right now does not work for our family. For vehicle traffic, we don't drive on it unless we really have to, and we will never bike on it. The reason is, it's not safe for me and my family. Doors opening, people crossing, e-bikes, unicycles, electric scooters, the road condition, sewers, and a big one for our family is the pollution. The pollution is super bad, right on a road within 50 meters either side. 100 meters out, it gets better, and then out from there it gets worse. Why, I'm a former athlete, why anyone would exercise right beside a road, I don't know, but I will never. So that's commercial issues. I'm just not using the Danforth. And then can we look at biking in ravines, right? West Scarborough Rail Trail, get that done. Transportation, who tried to take it off the table at the last Infrastructure and Environment Committee meeting. And the Meadoway, Taylor Creek, the golf club. I would bike in the ravines and stuff, and we do, but I'm not biking on major streets ever. So, and we're doing all this for 0.6% by our own stats of people that use the road. And it's causing delays for commuting, and I'm not frequenting businesses on the Danforth. It's got commercial implications. The answer for Scarborough is transit right now. I believe in global warming, I believe we have to reduce cars, but right now most people drive in Scarborough We need improved transit. We need this one bus on Kingston Road. We need the same thing on St. Clair. We have a food desert in our neighborhood. Single moms that are PSWs at night have to take 2 or 3 buses to go 2 kilometers to a no frills. I think you need to focus on transit and the secondary parallel roads and the ravines. Whenever you go to one lane, it's done.
Thank you very much for your question, Misha. And we've been hearing very similar questions from others, so I'm looking forward to the answer.
Hi, everybody. Again, my name is Becky Katz. I manage the Cycling Pedestrian Projects Unit. We had the pleasure of chatting for a bit, and I'm happy to chat again when we break up into small groups so that we can have a back and forth discussion, which is always really nice. I will say that we are investing in trails and projects in the ravines. I'm glad to hear that that's places that you like to recreationally ride. Part of the Danforth project, both the existing and the extension, is not just for recreation, but for people getting from A to B. We do have a lot of data about the existing section, including seeing major increases in cycling ridership, decreases in collisions, and some impacts to driving, but not extensive impacts. We're a growing city. There's a lot of construction. There's a lot of investment in transit. And so some part of that is just managing through our immense growth phase and investing in our infrastructure. I will say that this project is a complete streets approach. So things like investing in improving on transit on Kingston Road, there are proposals here tonight that suggest that. We also heard last night some recommendations about service changes on Kingston Road and the desire to see more service. That's something that we're happy to communicate with and ensure that we have a good plan at the next meeting. But there is a number of opportunities here to improve transit, to improve motor vehicle operations in some ways, while also managing growth, construction, and ensuring that no matter how you travel, that you can arrive home safely.
And in a timely manner.
And in a timely manner, no matter the way you travel. Yeah.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Lucy Perry, and I'm a level 5 can-bike instructor, and I believe I have one of my students right there getting her level 4 from Eastern Avenue. I use Kingston Road all the time. We have to do something with Kingston Road. 2 weeks ago, there was an amazing accident. The guy was clocked at 120 kilometers an hour, and the girl was lucky to be alive. I've made up a sign. Every time I see they're going fast, I have a little sign. You're going too fast, and all of a sudden you see them brake like that. What I want to see on Kingston Road, please, City of Toronto, do not spend a lot of money on consultation. Yes, I know they're good. What I want to see is just those, when you get up to Eglinton, those red, it makes a big difference. I mean, I teach in the summertime. I teach at Herring Park, so every day, get on Kingston Road, and from where I live at Midland to Eglinton, I'm taking my life in my own hands because they're just going like the Dickens. As soon as I hit Eglinton, I feel so relaxed because with the what they have. So let's not reinvent the wheel here. And I don't want to see what's happening on Danforth Avenue there's on one side there's the big blocks, and then there's if something happens, there's no way that you can get out. You're going to hurt yourself. I don't want to see that nonsense. That is terrible. I had the opportunity a couple weeks ago cycling up to Islington over there. It was really nice, past Old Mill. It's fantastic. But on Danforth, I hate those blocks on left and the right. They're just so dangerous. So, and I want to tell everybody, please take your level 4. I do work for the City of Toronto as a camp-bike instructor. And everybody should take a good lesson with level 4 cycling, okay? That's all I have to say. Thank you.
somebody who bikes as an actual mode of transportation, not just for recreation, I bike to get my hair cut, bike to the grocery store, bike to, I bike, most places in my community. I really appreciate and am very supportive of any proposals for improved bike infrastructure. And as much as, bike lanes and infrastructure in ravines and on side streets are nice, really fundamentally, unless people want those big retail stores like Home Depot or a Loblaws to be mixed in with their single-family homes in residential neighborhoods, you can't have bike infrastructure only in those quieter, calmer neighborhoods, because the places that people go are on the big streets, or on the major streets like Danforth, like Kingston. They're on areas, and so pushing that infrastructure off is not going to work, and I really support this proposal, really appreciate it. Looking forward to it. It's also where the new residential units are getting built as well, so even more reason for it as well. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Peter Thadchuk, and I'm with the Cliff Crest Scarborough Village Southwest Residents Association. And I'm going to say very plainly, I wish you would speak. If you're speaking to, I think BIA should also speak to various residents associations. We're not going to bite. And I want to say, I too want to see bike riders safe. I don't believe what we're doing by mixing it. Abutting traffic is safe. I can't see why we don't look at something like the Metrolink. And I realize it's another level of government, and it's Metrolinks, and they're bullies. I understand this. However, there is only one taxpayer, and we could have dedicated bike lanes that follow along the goal line for parts of it, because it has that on the diagonal shape for part of the road that we have. I also have to say, I am sorry, I didn't hear what you said.
It belongs to CN, so no, you can't have bike lanes on the railway right of way.
All right, thank you. Okay, and maybe that is the answer. But I also attend a number of these meetings that are the result of city initiatives. Today it's for this project. The other week it was the TTC with proposing an LRT, and then we've had the Major Streets EHON study. And all I really want to say is when you look at the various nodes, and I'm going to use one where I live here, Scarborough Golf Club Road and Kingston Road, the initiatives seem to be working counterproductively. Please, please don't live in your silos. Talk to these other people, please, because they're doing a disservice to the City of Toronto if you don't. Good work, you're trying hard, but talk to these other people. Talk to the Residents Association. We're having this meeting. Thank you.
Go ahead. Yep. It's you can wait for the microphone. And we definitely are reaching out to the residents associations, and we're glad to have you here tonight.
Yeah, we'll be in touch.
Yep.
I'm a member of the Plouffe family. You may remember my TV show from back in the 50s, but I don't sign autographs.
What show?
I started driving in the city 68 years ago. We were talking about the merge over here. Just past the merge, the first set of traffic lights was a little place where I applied to get my first learner's permit. 6 months later, I had my license. Prior to that, I was a real cyclist. My father brought back a 3-speed bicycle hub when he came back from the war from England. Had one of the very, very few 3-speed bikes in the city at that time, and I used it regularly, biked everywhere, until of course I got my first car. His car, my father's car, of course. Unfortunately, I inherited it after his passing only 2 years later. But I can remember before the 401, Highway 2, Kingston Road. I still refer to Kingston Road as Highway 2. The number of times we traveled when he was stationed at Trenton before going overseas, hundreds of trips on the old Highway 2. From Highland Creek down to probably close to where the merge is now. It was known as Motel Road. When you were coming into Toronto from the east, unless you could afford to go down and stay at the Royal York or the King Eddie, you stayed in a motel on Kingston Road, that's the name.
Mr. Cliff, your question?
Okay, first of all, do the people that make these various traffic arrangements, do they first of all have an Ontario driver's license? Secondly, do they use it to drive in the city? I think their training should involve a minimum 2 hours driving Monday through Friday from 8 to 4 through the city on their own to see what reality really looks like. The biggest farce I can see now is these four-way red lights that people more and more and more are starting to run through because they know, oh, I stopped for a red light. But why isn't the traffic moving the other way for 5, 6, 7, 8, 10 seconds? Next time I'm going through. I drive enough through the city now to see this numerous times every day. In addition to my own driving, I drove 30 years transit. Been retired for 25 now, so I think I know what transit is all about. One thing very lacking is lack of line supervision. 3 or 4 buses in a row? Not in my day. No way.
So, Mr. Cliff, I got asking about staff experience with driving and also about the four-way red lights.
Yeah.
Okay.
They may work in Amsterdam or Berlin, but they do not work in Toronto.
Okay.
Yeah, I would say thank you, and I look forward to chatting more about how the neighborhood has changed over the years that you've lived here. It sounds like you know a lot about the community and the growth and change. But I will say that transportation services staff, many drive, many live across the city and drive to commute, drive for other trips. They also walk, bike, and take transit. So happy to talk about individual experiences along with our professional expertise in traffic analysis, observational studies, and collision studies, and those types of things. And happy to share, I'd like to know a bit more about what you mean by a four-way red light, so that we can talk about it after when we break up into it, so I can understand exactly, so I can explain potentially some rationale.
Hi. Yeah, I moved here 22 years ago to McCowan Kingston Road. Drove downtown. I work at Spadina and Richmond. That commute went from being 35 minutes to an hour and 10. So I threw in the towel. I ride. It takes me 45 minutes. But I'm not here for me. I own and rent a bunch of condos on Kingston between St. Clair and Vic Park. My tenants don't have an expectation of what a lot of these people are talking about. They don't have an expectation that they're going to drive across the city this way. They're looking for transit and safe pedestrian places and close to shops. So all that to say, I think, what I'm curious about is if you guys are taking into account the development of these condos that are happening between St. Clair and Vic Park, the explosion of them, and what's the ratio of parking spots to units, so that traffic that's pouring onto these roads that are driving these people bananas, what's the impact of that condo development, and how many of those condo units that are coming with parking spots?
So I can say that's something we'll have to get back to you. We know where all the condo proposals are, and there is a map of them, but we don't have tonight the exact ratios, but that's information that we're happy to pull together and provide. But as you know, over time with development standards and policies, the amount of parking to units has gotten lower and lower over time. So it probably depends a bit on when was the project approved, and which zoning class and area it's in. But that is absolutely information that we have from our city planning colleagues and can provide. Yeah.
I think you need it for what you're talking about.
Hello everyone, my name is Tom. I just want to thank everyone here. It's nice to see everyone when we're all listening to each other's ideas. It's good for the community and such. I was actually online yesterday, but it's tough to communicate in that forum, so I thought I would share my opinion again here. I've lived in Cliffside for 11 years, and I've been a paramedic for 16 years, and the way Danforth Road, Bloor Street, Dundas is set up, is a big detriment to what I do and what I provide to the city. I can't get my ambulance through Danforth. I avoid it like the plague, and typically I have to go up further to like Mortimer or down south to Girard to get to calls close to Danforth. So I'm traveling longer distances and going to hospitals as well. It's a nightmare, and I've been caught several times on Danforth and on Bloor where there's just no room for cars to go. And I know I saw the presentation, when you want to shrink the 2 lanes as well, then it gives even less space for people to move over, and then you have an isolated bike lane. So I get it. I want everyone to be safe, and I get the idea of not letting cars into a bike lane, but in my situation, there's literally no room for people to move over, and I've had to just turn off my emergency lights and sirens and wait for a couple lights to change to clear up traffic to get through. And the same thing happens on Dundas, where you've put it on a streetcar, and there's no room. The streetcar TTC is being told just to stop if they see an emergency vehicle. I can't get around. So I don't know if you've done any consultation with emergency services, and if so, actual paramedics working on the road, because I feel like my management can tell you one thing, but like I'm still working on the road for 16 years, and I'm telling you, Danforth and Bloor does not work for emergency services. I don't see such a big deal on Kingston Road here, because there's room for people to move over, and I want people to be safe. And I think you mentioned as well about the red lanes, because I see a lot of people there, and I was curious for people who bike, how you feel about it, because it seems like it's a good idea and it's safe, and I've actually seen those bike groups on there just biking away, and they seem happy and safe. So if that's just a possibility, just to allow to extend that, improve the bus lanes, but then if they feel safe, then if that's okay, then it still gives an option when you hear a siren. Everyone can stop, turn around, kind of pull to the side, and it makes my job and everyone else's lives a little safer as well. But what's happening on Danforth is actually a health and safety risk when it comes to my job and everyone else's. I just want people to understand. I'm not against bike lanes and safety, because if anything, I get it. Like, I want people to be safe, but we have to see the whole picture.
Yeah, thank you so much for everything you do for the city.
Oh, no, it's my pleasure.
It's essential.
I didn't come for the claps. I just want it to be direct. Like, I feel like that aspect hasn't really been seen and thought about well, because, like I said, Danforth and Bloor is a disaster for us.
Yeah, so I'll say a few things, but also happy to connect, when we break up to talk about specific issues. So we do work with emergency services. We do work with a variety of staff, both in paramedics, fire, and police, to work on design standards, to look at pinch point issues, to make modifications to existing designs, and to monitor response times. And the data that they have provided us has shown that overall response times have not changed. Now, that does not mean that there are not specific instances and design standards that we can continue to evolve to make sure people have places to pull over, to make it easier to get through at certain intersections where there's key bottlenecks. But ultimately, what the feedback that we've received from some in emergency services is that generally with the level of construction, with the level of growth in traffic, etc., that has overall made certain places with or without bikeways challenging, and that they need to continue to evolve how services happen to ensure that you can safely operate your vehicle. And part of that strategy is also to see how do we get more people on transit, how do we get less people driving overall, because there are corridors today that have no bikeways that have challenges with emergency services operations. So while I hear you that you have specific concerns about a specific corridor, we've heard that there are challenges across the board, and those have to be addressed head on. But happy also to talk about Bloor and Danforth and key locations and interests, but thank you for your feedback also about Kingston and the width of the road, and again, thank you for your service. Yeah.
Hi, okay. I've been talking to people about this project in my neighborhood, Cliffside, for a while now. Strangers will actually accost me on the street because they're talking about how annoying it is to cross the road. But I heard something from Kyle that worried me a lot. I heard something that, I don't know the exact word, but equated to paint. I've heard a lot of people here talking about how they won't ride a bike. And there are some people who are riding right now and they love the red bike lanes. I talked to a large quantity of people who would ride a bike, including myself. I bought one 2 years ago thinking I'd be able to use it, and I can't, not legally. The only way that my friends and family, that people who would like to ride a bike, like I use the cart as little as I can because I'm spending money to put carbon in the air, right? But how else do I get somewhere? I basically just walk and stay in Cliffside. So the only way that we will use a bike lane, and it doesn't have to be all of us. If you hate bike lanes, that's fine. It only has to be a small percentage of people using the bike lane in order to actually reduce traffic. We need protection from the vehicles. If it is just paint, even if it's a red paint for the buses, we won't be on it. It will be empty because it's great to make it safer for people who are brave enough to use the roads as it is, but for the majority of us, we need protection.
So I think this will be our last speaker, and then we can have lots of one-on-one conversations, get your question answered, get those details, and you can actually take a closer look at the various designs and options. Yeah, if you can make your brief question.
So my name is Jackson. I'm a student studying transportation, where you design roadways and time traffic signals to improve traffic flow, safety, and public transit service.
Here, speak right to the mic. Say your name again.
My name is Jackson, and I'm studying at college right now for civil engineering and technology for transportation. It is a type of program where you learn about designing roadways and timing traffic signals to improve traffic flow, safety, and public transit service. One feature that I'm wondering if they're going to be using, and I would suggest they give it a go, is implementing leading through green arrow intervals instead of the leading pedestrian intervals. The purpose of that is to allow people who are not turning to proceed straight through the intersection, and turning traffic has to wait for the through arrow to become the green ball.
So Jackson, I think Kyle has got a whole bunch of signal experts tonight that can have a one-on-one conversation with you about that.
Okay.
Yeah, and I will also say that we're also not at that phase of level of design. So tonight want to hear when we break back up into the room about locations that you hope that your street was more, areas of concern where you feel there is specific levels of congestion, turning movement issues. We really want to get the local insights that you all have, because you're the best experts in your street. So, and again, we welcome all different perspectives. We do have some proposals on the table, but we're happy to take criticism and critique and hear more different perspectives on all the elements. Jason, we also, just so you know, there's another public in-person meeting on Tuesday, June 25th. The same content and format will be presented. So you're more than welcome to join us again, but it will be the same. There will be a question and answer period, so you may hear from other residents. It is further to the west because this is a long corridor, and we just want to make it easy for people to join us at different locations. So, yeah.
And just a reminder that you can also give your comments on email at danforthkingston@toronto.ca. And if you haven't already, please do go onto the website, toronto.ca/danforthkingston, and you can complete the online survey. The comment deadline is July 15th. Thank you very much for your cooperation. We look forward to speaking with you at the tables and at the panels. Thank you, and we'll be adjourning at 8 o'clock.